We do touch on some heavy topics, and you can always check the description for more details on this episode. The TUrtzed podcast and content in this episode is presented solely for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. Neither I nor my guests are healthcare or mental health care providers, and we are not licensed or authorized to provide professional medical advice. For more information, please see our policy at TUrtzed.com. Today, we're going to talk to someone who focuses on graphic design, art direction, and photography here at H-Gab Studios, as well as her love for dance, her kidney transplant, and what it's like to be first generation. Mari, welcome to TUrtzed.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to sit down with you and talk a little bit more about how you moved into this world of graphic design, art direction, and photography from dance.
For sure. I'm super excited to say it's a very long story, but I'll make sure to keep it short for here for the sake of the podcast.
We'll go into all the details.
Cool.
So I guess let's just start with when you got started with photography and art direction.
Okay, so I think we can start with where I first got kind of like inspired for photography.
Yeah.
My stepdad, it's my dad, but my stepdad's mom, she was a wedding photographer. And she always would take photos, and when she would come visit us, she would make us pose. And I just got super interested in the camera itself and obviously posing in front of it. I think I was just born like a ham. Like,
to be on stage?
Yeah. I was born to be on stage. So I don't know, I just first got inspired of like, oh wow, like not only can someone be in front of the camera, but wow, there's like so much mechanics that go behind the camera, right? Like the camera, the lens, and all that stuff. So that's how I think first started. And then just growing up in a very like artistic household, my dad basically builds all of our furniture. My mom is a true artist in all the sense. She's a singer, she can paint, she was also a model. So I think it was just very natural for us as a family, and me particularly, to just gravitate to the arts, in particular photography, graphic design, and of course art direction.
When you look back at your childhood, what pushed you towards dance as a form of art versus painting or drawing or photography at that age?
Right. I think it goes back again to my parents. My mom has always been an amazing dancer. All of her family gatherings, all of her family parties, she was always dancing in the middle of the room with all of my family members. Like, so I was always like brought up to like learn how to dance, and it came easy to me and it was fun. You know, I also was such a very active kid. I was very hyperactive. I'm pretty sure I'm undiagnosed or self-diagnosed ADHD, but when I was a kid, I had so much energy. I would be climbing up the trees. I would be playing, going up and down the stairs, and my mom's like, I need to put her in something. So I think it was because my mom put me in a ballet class when I was 3 years old, and it clicked. As opposed to like my cousins or other friends who like, you know, naturally as a girl, they'll put you in ballet classes, just something to keep you like busy, if not, you know. And I just really liked it. It was easy. Not to say that dancing is easy, but it just felt natural to me to dance and follow steps and wear the tutus and the slippers and all that like fantasy that like revolves around dance. I think I really fell in love with that, and it was very easy. Did
you ever get into choreography?
So I did. Naturally, being a dancer, you do get into choreography, but I didn't like teaching other people my dances. And I think it's because I'm such a control freak in a way that like if you couldn't do it how I did it, it would frustrate me. I can remember, as far back as I can remember, going to the garage and making my cousins do the dance, and I'd be the one in the center, and I'd be like, you know, choreographing this whole thing. But as I got older, it's something that I didn't want to do. I just didn't feel, I liked the performance of it. I didn't like the creation of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess it's interesting, especially because you've shifted into graphic design and art direction, as well as photography, where you do have a bit less control, but you put options out there.
100%.
When you look back at when you started dancing and choreography versus the art direction and graphic design and photography, what do you think the difference is for you?
I think the difference is, actually, I don't see a lot of difference now thinking about it. Being a choreographer as a dancer, you're telling people what to do and how to do it. And I think when it comes to photography and art direction, whether in the landscape of photography or set design and stuff like that, you're telling other people what to do and trusting your vision, essentially your choreography, right? And now that it's funny that you're mentioning it right now, and I've always said I don't like choreography, but I realize I am a choreographer.
Yeah.
Like, I tell people what to do, and if you ever go into any of my shoots, like, I am so bossy in the nicest way. Like, I'm here to empower people behind the lens, but I am like, move this here, put that there, lean here. Like, and the same thing with set design. I don't like that curtain there, move the curtain here. Like, I am 100% choreographing this whole thing. And wow, that's crazy that you asked me that question and it just clicked. Wow.
Well, I think there's just a juxtaposition between the two. And I think the same thing when you talked about being very active and jumping around and your mom putting you in ballet, which is actually unbelievably structured. How did you balance your focus and how structured and how specific ballet was?
Yeah, I think the balance was necessary. And I don't think I ever fought it that much. I was a very strong-willed child, and I do remember back in the day, you know, I always bumped heads with my parents, you know, because I didn't like to be told what to do. But for some reason, in the space of dance, I kind of like fiend off the structure of it. Like, I liked that from this time to this time, I have to be here. I have to follow instructions. I'm told how to do it. And I don't know what it is about dance that really made me feel like I liked the structure of it. And I even attest to how I am as a professional now. Like, my training really built me to understand how to work in a team setting, you know, because you're constantly working with other dancers. You're not the only dancer there. How to look up to leadership and understand leadership and respect leadership. And how to be disciplined, because with dance, you know, at first it's all fun and games. It's just a little hobby. But I took it, I was like, I want to be a professional. And in order to be a professional, you got to take this serious. Like, it was very apparent from the start that if you wanted to be a professional dancer, you couldn't just come when you want to and then, you know, not have your hair structured and stuff like that. And I do attest that to the coaches and teachers that I had, that they set really high expectations. I think I've always wanted to please in a way too, even being such a wild child. And like, I wanted to please. I want people to like me, and I want someone to tell me, good job. You're doing great, actually. Oh, wow, you're so good at that. And I think I fiend off that, plus the structure and the control. And yeah, it felt very natural. So yeah, being kind of wild and all that stuff, I felt like it's natural as a kid, and I think I still am like that. But I think if it wasn't for that structure, I don't think I'd be the person I am today, 100%.
Did that translate to school, or was school totally separate and your structure was in ballet and then school was its own?
Well, I grew up in a very like strict household, so it wasn't like you can do really good at dance and then you could just slack off in school. Like, I was not allowed to bring anything lower than a C, and a C is already like tisk, like no. And they knew that because I love dance, that they can take dance away from me if I didn't do good in school. So I was super outgoing. I was super structured in school too. I wouldn't say I was smart. Like, I wasn't a smart, like a book worm or anything like that. Like, I didn't read my first like full book until I was probably like 18.
I personally still would choose an audiobook over reading, so 100%. I definitely understand that sentiment.
Yeah, audiobooks is the future. I love it, and I think I do like learning. The structure in which school is here in the United States, or at least my experience, I didn't gravitate to it, but I understood, got it. If I want to keep dancing, I have to be good at school. So I found my ways around it. I became super active in school, so then I wouldn't have to go to classes where I'd be excused and stuff like that. And I would make friends with the teachers' aides. And I mean, I probably shouldn't say this on the podcast, but I 100% became a master cheater. I knew how to cheat, and I would study, but you know, I was training 5 days a week. there wasn't truly time to like study and like, you know, really put in the work. So I found my way around it. And I think that's why I think I'm very street smart. I figured out a way to make it work and make my parents proud and meet my parents' standard, even if I don't really necessarily agree.
Do you use anything that you learned in school aside photography and art direction and graphic design is different, but do you look at it as you just had to do it to get through it, or did you take something out of it?
Both, right? So I did it because I had to do it, the schoolwork aspect of it. But I think the social aspects of school really taught me a lot. I went to a charter school, so it was kind of like public, but it conducted in a private school way. So it was easy to stand out, right? And I took that as
what they're designed to do.
Yeah. And so I was able to stand out, and I also learned the structures and like society norms, and like I learned in a negative way, but also positively, like how easy it is to adapt if you like put yourself out there, meet people. I was friends with so many people. I was student body president. Like,
I love that.
So, you know, I just really learned so much from the people around me, especially the culture too, because I went to a high school that was, because it was a charter school, during the whole situation that happened in Venezuela, a bunch of people came from Venezuela. So I got to connect, one, with my culture, with people my age, and I got to expand my social circle a lot, and it allowed me to really hone that like social skill that I think school should do.
Yeah.
Like, you know, school teaches you that.
Yep.
So, but I know it can have an adverse effect. I know a lot of people retract back. I leaned in, and that's something that I did take away. I can't tell you anything I learned in high school. Like, nothing.
Do you think that drive for your parents, understanding that dance was so important to you and using it to motivate you to do well in school, had to do with you being first generation in the US?
100%. I think, again, I only want to talk about my experience, but I think it's kind of normal for parents who are coming to a new country, don't know anything, and they want to succeed, and they want their kids to succeed because they're giving their kids this opportunity, right, to do better than they did. So I definitely felt that pressure for my parents. I felt like, you need to do better than we did. We want you to have more. And in order for you to do that, you need to follow XYZ. You need to do that. So a part of me is, you know, being a people pleaser at the same time, but the people that I wanted to please the most were my parents.
Of course.
Even though like later on I rebelled and I had my own thoughts and ideas, in the beginning, I just wanted to be, like really good representation of their sacrifice. That's truly at the end of the day what it was. Like, I wanted to make sure that I had more than what they did.
And as an adult, being able to reflect on that and share that point of view, I think is so important, because it's such a sacrifice, as you've said, and they wanted you to succeed. And I think success is broadly spoken about in terms of school of the grades. I think when you look at different professions, such as something creative, a podcast, graphic design, photography, for me, I never did well in school until I went to college and started taking business classes. I did well because I wanted to go to a certain school that had nothing to do with school. It had to do with its proximity to being able to ski in the winter.
Wow.
But I found something that I loved, and that was business. And once I was taking business classes, I did really well in those, did not do so well in science or art history, but I was able to make it through. As a child, what did that feel like for you to have something that you love that provides an immense amount of pressure on you in terms of dance, and then the pressure from your parents to do well in school, and that dance would be taken away if you didn't?
I think I met it with a lot of rebellion. Like, I hated it. Like, I hated it, truly. But I did it. Like, I understood that very young, like life is a game. Got it. I have to do that. And it was very apparent. I lived in one of those households. It's like my house, my rules. So, got it. Cool. I understand the assignment, which later on allowed me to have a double life, which I hate. I hate that I at some point had a double life because I had to appear like the perfect student, the perfect dancer, like the perfect daughter. And I was far from that, obviously. And but I definitely think I really rejected my parents because of that structure that they kind of like set up for me, right? I really leaned into dance, and I thought, well, whatever. If I have to suck it up for 8 hours, I get to do what I love for like the other remaining 5 hours that I have in the day, you know, and I can completely disconnect. I'm not at my house. I don't have to hear clean your room. I don't have to hear, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I can do like something that, one, I felt that I was good at, two, felt that it was so much fun. And I think there's like endorphins that come from doing a physical activity, right? I think I was like addicted to that feeling that you get from doing exercises. So like, now that you're bringing up this question, I wonder if I was almost like an addict to the endorphins, and that I would have done anything as long as that didn't get taken away from me.
Well, and as you said in the beginning, you were being told good job in dance. And so even if you weren't necessarily getting it at home for school, you were getting it at dance, which is what you cared more about. And you were doing enough to get by with school to be able to continue with dance. So it's very obvious why you would sort of lead that double life of feeling like there were two versions of you, which I can definitely relate to. When do you feel like they started to merge back together, or have they?
I think once I moved out of my house, once I graduated high school, I started to really realize, oh wow, I don't have to follow like someone else's like regimen or like what they think is best for me. Like I get to decide. And I think after I got kicked out of my house when I was 18, and I think it was a very trying time, but it was like, in hindsight, you're like, wow, what an amazing moment. And that was the day, or the moments, right, that it clicked. Like, oh, wow, I can be myself now. I don't need to please my parents anymore. I just have to please myself and what my standards of success are, what my goals are, you know? I think once, and I think a lot of people can say that once they move out of their parents' house or from any environment that it feels like restricting or that you have to follow certain rules, you really find yourself, and you're really like, and even though I've had many evolutions, I feel.
As an artist, I would expect nothing less.
Exactly. I've had many evolutions. I'm a true Pokemon, but I think that, yeah, that was a moment. Moving out, making the mistakes, and having not the support from my parents. I think if I would have had my parents' support, I don't think I would have evolved the way that I did. I needed to do it on my own.
It's interesting because it's such a difficult period of time to be kicked out of your house at such a young age, or what we consider a young age in the US. And also, again, being able to look back and say, well, it also made me who I was because I was able to explore myself more freely, and I was able to figure out what I liked and what made me happy. And if you were making ends meet, then you could do whatever you wanted to do.
Exactly.
What did that look like for you after you moved out?
So something that I want to mention is that when I moved out, I had just been recently diagnosed with my kidney disease at the same time. So I think I went to the extreme as far as like, oh, I have my freedom now. Like, oh, wow, like I've been diagnosed with something. Can I curse here?
Go for it.
I've been diagnosed with kidney disease. And, you know, after reading all that stuff and what comes with that, you know, you're like, okay, fuck. And then living in a very like structured and very disciplined house. Once I moved out, that I think I went to the extreme as far as like, I got to do something good. I'm not going to let this disease like take over me. Like I'm not going to let my parents do it. Won't let this disease. Like I want to be a dancer. Like I was so determined, and I didn't care what I did. I did some shady stuff to get make ends meet, as a lot of kids do, you know, like working here, doing side jobs there, doing a favor here. I would do anything for money, not anything, but
You're hustling.
Yeah, I was a true hustler. Yeah.
Those street smarts.
Yeah, those street smart honestly really came to play. I do thank my parents for that, because I know that's part of the environment that I grew up in, but I think it was from trying to get out of like all the things that were coming at me. I'm 18, graduated high school. I've been diagnosed with a kidney disease, and I live in such a structured household. Like I was 18 and still having like a 10 o'clock curfew, and I was like, I hated it. You know what I mean? Like I broke out. So when I was on my own, I really hustled my way through. And Yeah, I think like I went to the extreme as far as like I would party so much, but then I would do some crazy stuff, and then I would try to go to school, and I just try to be an adult really, really quick early on because of it.
When you were diagnosed with your kidney disease, how did that impact your ability to dance?
It impacted it completely. I tried to keep dancing, but that was impossible because with a kidney disease comes so many side effects. It's not like a silent, you know, like, oh, you have high blood pressure, take a medication, you can live with it essentially. You know, my feet were swollen. I couldn't even put my dance shoes on. I was winded. My face would be swollen. My fingers, like my tights would fit, bad. I couldn't make it into certain practices. And because dance is so structured, if you're missing more than 3 practices at a time, you're lost. And at that point, I was working as a professional dancer as well. I was getting gigs with the same company, and I couldn't even make it to the classes. So it affected me tremendously. And I had to mourn that. Because for my entire life, I'm going to be a professional dancer. I'm going to be a professional dancer. I know it's a short life or a short career span, but I'm going to do it. I know it's what's going to bring me joy, whatever. And I had to mourn that. I had to really look at myself in the mirror and be like, oh, wow. Like everything that I've been doing for my entire life is going out the window.
What did that feel like in the moment in terms of your self-worth? Because you had it so intertwined with dance, and it was where you felt successful.
Yeah.
How did you find your self-worth going forward separate from dance?
I don't know where I found it. I definitely was depressed for a really long time. I want to say between the ages of 18 to 21. I would fake it, right? Like on the outside, I'm like, I'm having fun. Everything is fine. Everything's cool. But inside I was like, I hate my life.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? And then finding my self-worth was really hard because I don't like that I did this, but I think I found my self-worth a lot in how good I did things. And how like people saying good job, or like, oh, you're going to be the next, or like you're in the front of the dance. Like that was how I thought, oh my God, I'm so good. Also my body too. Oh my God. Growing up, I was always like, oh my God, you're so skinny, or like, oh wow, you're so built. Oh, you're so muscular. Like, oh, you have the best body. I love that growing up as a girl, especially in the early 2000s, where like, I think people's bodies were constantly being criticized, and your worth was based on, do those jeans look good on you or not? Or like, are you skinny enough, and things like that. So I think in hindsight, it had to happen, because I would hate to see myself now and be like so tied to how I look. And when I tell you that I would look like I couldn't recognize myself. If I would cry, that was another thing too. So when I was mourning and trying to find, because I was like depressed, I didn't know who I was and whatever, you naturally cry. I couldn't cry because if I cried, my face would blow up where I couldn't even open my eyes. And I couldn't recognize. And then I would look in the mirror and I hate what I see, and then I would cry more. So it would be like a cycle.
Yeah.
Dude, it was so crazy that I don't know. I think I couldn't even tell you when it was that I finally found my self-worth. And it had to probably be the people who were around me. My family, honestly. As much as I battled with them, like specifically my mom and my dad, I have a huge family. And they were truly my support, always being there and supporting me, taking me to dialysis, taking me to my doctor's appointment, always telling me how beautiful I am and stuff like that. So I think through them and with time, and when you start feeling like yourself again, that's when I started to find my self-worth and realize, okay, I'm going to have to do something that just brings me joy and just stick with that.
And I want to get to that in a second, because I want to hear how you transitioned into art direction and graphic design. I think something that you just said about your parents were there to provide you essentially the things that you lost from dance. And so there's almost, seems like a scale of when they were heavy into pushing you on school and making sure that you were successful, dance provided those other things for you. And when dance went away, there still was pressure, as you mentioned, to go to school and go to college, but they also were able to provide you the things that you were no longer getting from dance and the support with your dialysis.
100%.
And so I think that is a very interesting juxtaposition, because they're able to provide both, and they want you to be successful, and you know now that it comes from a good place.
100%.
And you went through a very difficult time that I would imagine would be exponentially more difficult had they not stepped in to support you, regardless of whether or not you were living under their roof.
Totally. I think that a lot of people who find themselves in similar situations, whether it's cancer, whether it's like a terminal disease, and even nurses and doctors will tell you that the healing journey, if you don't have support from your family or support from loved ones, it can really determine the health of the patient. And I think that was a big part of it, 100%. Like I started to get what I would get from dance from my family and realize, I mean, I had to shift focus at that point. Like, forget my career, like my health. Like, am I going to be here tomorrow? Like, what kind of quality of life am I going to have, you know? And even then I chucked on, but it was not just my mom and my dad, like my family, like again, my grandmother's sister, my godmother, my cousins, you know, and I'm Hispanic, so I have a huge family. So when I say that everyone came in, wow, they all rallied around me. I was their purpose, essentially. And if it wasn't for them, yeah, I think I would have, I don't want to get emotional, but I would have gone into like a deep depression.
Of course. I think it's the fact that you didn't go there, even with all that support, is unbelievable, because having health issues is so difficult.
I'm so sorry.
No. Are you okay?
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
You know, I don't ever. I'm always such a like push forward person that I never really go back that much.
You know, even just this conversation that we're having, I feel like we haven't had this talk in such a long time.
Yeah.
Like even us, you know. So.
Yeah. I think we forget that when things are so good, you tend to forget all the trials and the tribulations, like the emotional aspect of it, out of survival, right? Out of survival, you put things down, you shove them down. I'm like, yeah, I went through that. I mean, anyone will ask me, they're like, oh, you have a kidney stone? Yeah, I have a kidney stone. And I talk about it like it's like a walk in the park. Like I just brush my teeth, like something super common. But when you ask me those questions, it brings me back to how emotional those moments and how dark.
Yeah.
How dark it was for someone who literally had the world in their hands. You know what I mean? I felt like, I can do anything. I was so cocky about it. I was like so privileged in the sense that like I had everything. I was talented. I consider myself, I thought, you know, I know I'm beautiful, but like I thought I was the hottest shit ever. Like I had a boyfriend, I had family, everything was great. And then that happened. My world shattered. And just anything with health, I think it's very scary because you can feel a certain way, but you have no idea what's happening internally. And that anxiety is crazy too. But thank you for making me cry.
It was not my intention. I appreciate you sharing. And
Thank you.
And I think the other aspect of this is how much you've built. When life gives us these twists and turns, it's really easy to stay focused on the past and sit in it. And you have to some extent. When was the moment for you when you realized, okay, I need to go down a different path, and you took charge and made those changes?
Okay, so when I was in the trajectory of I'm going to get my mom and me, we matched as kidney matches. So when my appointments were set, I've already been through some crazy medical stuff, from like having blood clots in my heart and my lungs, being in a hospital for 3 months. It's wild. But once they told me, hey, your mom's a match, you could be seeing your surgery within the next month, that's when I'm like, okay, this is my chance. this is my chance. Like, now I don't have any excuses. I can, when I get my kidney, I can go to school, I can travel, I can do, you don't realize how much your life is limited when you have a health condition. It's crazy. So when I saw that light at the end of the tunnel, I started planning. I'm like, okay, got it. Can't dance. Can't do that. Well, what else can I do? I didn't have people around me, like, and I don't know, I think now a lot of things are a lot more accessible. Like, pick up a phone and like just go on TikTok and put like different types of career. Like, Google wasn't that advanced in, when was it? In
early 2000s.
Yeah, no, 2008, 2009. You know, because I got my transplant in 2010. So in 2000, I didn't know what other creative careers there was besides graphic design, dance, and photographer. But I thought photography, you know, was either like the most attainable was like wedding photographer, like event photography. And that's not something that I necessarily wanted to do. I wanted to be the best at what I do and feel like I was my own boss. I wanted to feel like I had more control and be the best at what I wanted to do and not just be like an employee. So I started planning, and then I realized, okay, I really wanted to do graphic design, but there isn't really a lot of schools that do graphic design. So I took photography in high school, my senior year, and my teacher, Mr. Schneider, I'll never forget him. He's like, I think you have an eye for photography. I think you should look into it. Dance was still on my forefront, but he had referred me to a school called Miami Ad School. So cut to when I'm there in the hospital bed or about to get my kidney transplant, and I'm like, I think I'm going to try to go to that school. I'm going to try to go to that school and see what I can do there. And then that snowballed into, you know, where I am today.
You use the same principles of pushing yourself in terms of when you were able to see what you wanted to accomplish. It seems like that's what helped turn around your frame of mind when you were going through the kidney transplant process, and you were able to shift it away from dance into something else that you felt passionate about and use that as your goal for getting healthy and changing your mindset. What advice would you give to someone, regardless of having a health condition or not, about pursuing their passions?
I think the advice that I would give to someone would be that you need to be your own hero, that no one's going to come and save you. And the only person who can truly move the needle or do something is you. And once you decide that, once you realize, oh, the control is in my hands, essentially, you stop being the victim and you start becoming the hero in your story.
Period. Before we finish today, what was it like to go through school and decide that you wanted to start building your own business, essentially, with your partners?
So, going back to my family, it really is the reason why I am the way I am. So I was brought up in a matriarch, right? My grandma, top honcho, everyone else followed suit. And I grew up and lived in a house where was just a lot of women. You know, when I first got into this country, it was literally like 6 women living in one house, and they all had their own businesses. My grandma had her own business. She first worked for American Express, and then she started her own shipping company, and then my aunt did the same thing. My godmother did the same thing. So I knew that if I wasn't dancing, that I wanted to be my own boss, period. Right. Then going into school, I realized, oh, wow, I can learn all these different types of skills. And I'll try advertising because it looks very successful. The money looks good. And, you know, when you get older, your dreams start becoming less dreams. And then they start becoming more like, okay, like, what's the reality of things, right? I interned for an advertising agency. I was like, hell no, I'm not doing this. I don't want to do this. I want to be my own boss. So I went back to hustling. And I think after meeting my business partners and my soulmates, because that's what I call them, right? After meeting my business partners and my soulmates, I knew, okay, all the ingredients are here. Let's do it. These are the people who are we can come together and we can build our own thing, and I think have the same opinions about the industry and we don't have to wait for anyone else or like work for someone else for us to do this. And so I think it took a lot of things to get me there, but I always knew I wanted to be my own boss and I wanted to do it my way and do something creative my way. Well, and collaborating with other reading for sure. And I mean, collaborating is a big thing, but in a way, like still have a voice and not have to wait 20 years working in a company and hopefully someone picks me. It's going back to that advice that I was saying, like, I wanted to be my own hero, but instead of working for a company, and this is no shade to anyone working for under a company or working a 9 to 5, like, get your paper and do what fills you. But for me personally, I wanted to be my own hero, meaning I know the only way for me to do that is to create the opportunity for myself. And I think my partners feel the same way.
Of course. And I think it also, you said very briefly, you had to give up on a dream. And I think that something that I have found is that even in you describing it, I don't feel like you gave up on a dream. I feel like it was a chapter of your life. It taught you a tremendous amount. And I know that even though I went through difficult work situations and there were things that I liked and there were things that I didn't like, and there were so many chapters. I started working at a pet store and I've worked in real estate. I've worked in for a wholesale bakery. I mean, ski resort, you name it. I probably have attempted it at one point. But all of those things, every single thing taught me something. And it was a chapter that led me to be able to motivate myself and figure out when I knew what I wanted to do.
Right.
It was a new dream because it was a new chapter. And I think that is what I also got out of what you said, because I know how passionate you are about what you do now. And it's completely different than dance, but you also love it. And it may be a different love, but I know the joy that it brings because I've worked with you on different aspects of the podcast and projects, but that's exciting as well. And that's a new chapter.
Super, super. I'm very happy of like how far I've come and like where I am and talking about those dreams. Because I had to let go of that one dream, I knew, and after I mourned it and I realized that dreams evolve as you as a person evolve. I'm not the same girl that I was when I was 17, 16, 15, or even 25. I'm a completely different human. And so the dreams that I had when I was 25 are not the same ones that I have now. But when we did start H-Gab Studios, I think there was an overall like dream. And it's cool because since it's our own, it's been able to evolve. So every journey or every growth that we've had with H-Gab, it's been a dream. It's been a new dream, essentially. Like, okay, that used to be my old dream, which at first was, I just want to work with my friends and like make my own money and make their own rules. And then it's like, the next dream was like, let's make our own studios. That's my dream. And then it's like, wait, I want to help the creative community. Like that's actually my new dream. And it's great that we haven't had to like let go of H-Gab and continue evolving those dreams.
Of course.
It's been really cool. I feel very, very, very blessed at the life that I've gotten to live, despite all the trials and tribulations.
And it wouldn't have you where you are today. And I think that's the most important part, because even as you were talking about it, I could see how much your partners and the work that you do lights you up. Totally.
It really does. And for the future too, like that excites me more, believe it or not. Like I get excited. People get really nervous. I think in my early 20s, I don't know how you felt, but like at least when I was 20, I was scared of the future. I was hopeful, but super scared. Like, what am I going to do? Whatever. And now in my 30s, I'm like, oh, I'm excited. Like, I wonder what next year's going to look like, or like, what am I going to do? Like, it's exciting.
I agree with that. I think for me, that came from getting out of depression, where you're so focused on trying to make changes that you can't even think about the future. Like you can barely think about the present because you're so focused on the past, or at least I was. And so I think for me, it did happen later in my 30s, but it was the moment where I realized like the past is the past. That's not going to change, but I have the opportunity to have it be different going forward.
Yes. Amen to that. Love that.
What overall message would you like to leave people with today?
I think the message that I want to leave for people is something that I've had to learn through the years, that, you know, people are always like, oh, why is this happening to me and stuff like that. You always have to keep in mind that the universe does things for you, not to you. And I think if you change that perspective a little bit, life seems a little bit, things are not so hard-edged.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of things were like, okay, well, that happened for me. I don't know what the reason is yet, but I'll figure it out, you know. I know it's cliche, but I'm really one of those people, like, everything has a reason, and that brings me peace. So I hope that people out there, whether they believe like everything happens for a reason, just know that the universe doesn't do things to you, it's for you.
It's a shift in perspective. And
Shift in perspective,
absolutely.
100%.
And it's taking the hero mentality.
Yeah.
What is something that someone has told you that has impacted your life and you'll never forget?
I think my grandma always said it to me. She's like, you should always leave the earth better than you found it. And not just like environmental, but like she meant that at like, you know, when you're in a workspace, make sure you leave better than when you like left it, or like she always had that mentality. And I think that had always stuck with me. And I take that like everywhere I go for some reason.
Well, it's even in every interaction.
Yeah.
Holding a door for someone.
Yes.
It's the little things that you have no idea how that's going to impact someone's day for the positive if that is your focus.
100%. I think it's very easy today. Like, I mean, I had a horrible experience at the post office, but I'm always, with that in the back of my mind, I'm always like, smile, be nice.
Yeah.
Because they're going to pass that on. Like, I just want to always make sure that when I left the room, it was better than when I left it. Like, I don't like fighting with people. I don't like it. I'll be sassy. But at the end, I'll probably be like, hey, like, I don't like to leave things like that.
Yeah.
That's probably something that kind of stays and resonates with me.
And now's the point where we're going to turn the tables and you can ask me any question you want.
What is something that someone has said to you that has resonated negatively or positively?
That is a great question. I think that there is, in the hero versus victim mentality, you can get caught up in why are these things happening to me? And especially when you have been through emotional trauma that leaves you feeling less than or unwanted or just not good enough.
Oof.
It's really hard sometimes to decipher between someone not being interested or not wanting to be friends or just a clash of personalities and you blaming yourself. And I had a friend that said, if they want to, they will. And I think for a really long time, I took that as such a negative and felt like I was in that childhood mindset of, or that early childhood inner monologue of, I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy, and ran with it that way. And I think as I have gone through my healing journey and gone through therapy, and even something that I still continue to work on, is it's okay. There are 8 billion people in the world, and if one doesn't like you, fuck it. Like, there's billions of more people in the world. And I think even with starting the podcast or putting myself out there more, I still struggle with that and still am my harshest critic. But the more that I try to focus on, if they want to, they will. And if they don't want to, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Keep moving, keep focused on what you want to do. There's so many other people out there that will want to, whether it's to be friends, to date, to work together, anything. Right. And so I think just in sort of the theme of what we talked about today, when my mindset shifted from victim to hero is when that specific saying has created more opportunity for me. And even in sales, I mean, I would get rejected every single day in sales, but I didn't take it personally because it was a business.
Right.
Personally, getting rejected was devastating for me. Even if it was, I can't go get a coffee, I would take it personally. But as I have sort of brought the business Charles and the personal Charles closer together, that has really shifted for me in terms of it's okay. Like everyone has a world going on. Everyone has things that they need to do and things that they're dealing with. And we can be there for each other. And you sort of learn who's there and who's not. And when it's more dire, you also have to communicate, I need more help. Right. And so I think all of those things together just all go back to, if they want to, they will.
It's beautiful. I love that.
Thank you for joining today. It was amazing. I appreciate you sharing so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for getting me emotional. It's a rare sighting. Anyone can tell you that I don't get really emotional.
I have tremendous guilt. So I
like it. I like it. And I like how we got it on camera because again, it's like not something that is natural for me.
Now you can point to a video saying specifically, I do cry. That's it for today's episode of TUrtzed, and we hope you enjoyed the conversation. Do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe or follow button because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. And if today's episode got you thinking, laughing, crying, or maybe even rolling your eyes, write a review and tap to rate. Now let's be real. This convo doesn't end here. Hit us up on socials and don't be shy. Slide into our DMs. We love to connect. Thanks for hanging with us today and catch you on the next one because our journey together is just getting started. Remember, stay curious, live authentically, and keep turtzing it up.